Chapter 50-33. The 5033 chapters. Daijun Wuyang sighed quietly, his emperor's eyes gloomy. Yu Chang immediately said, "This is not to blame you, no one would have thought that Emperor Zhenwu could blend the emperor's body. It is incredible." Following their conversation, endless defy finally fell and swept across the sky. Jian Wushuang, whose emperor body had been mellow, didn't stay at all, and he went straight to them and smashed the emperor fist fiercely. The void is shattered, and the desolate emperor realm has been completely disrupted. The power of the emperor fist shakes the emperor. Zhen Wuyang and Yu Chang retreated 100,000 feet at the same time to resist this power. But Jian Wushuang, with crimson lava flowing all over his body, as if tirelessly, continued to twist and smash. One punch and a million shadows. Not only that, after his emperor body, the 6 true emperor eyes bloomed again. The eyes of the 6 true emperors were opened together, and the unparalleled emperor thought bloomed, directly ignoring any emperor's luck and ignoring any emperor's heavenly path, and fell. Yu Chang's complexion changed, and his old face showed redness in an instant. In the final battle of the borderless sea, he had already been wounded, and at this moment he could not bear the 6 realms and 6 days of the true emperor. Zhen Wuyang sensed this change and directly blocked Yu Chang behind him, completely bearing all the offensives with his own emperor body. Boom boom boom. Without Yangxian can see through the 6 realms and 6 days of the true emperor, even the emperor can never. Since it is impossible to see through, he can only bear it completely, even the creation of this emperor-style Zhen Wuyang can only bear it. This is the Emperor Zhenwu after Yuan Ming the emperor's body, with a full blow. The emperor's clothes on Zhen Wuyang's body shattered directly, and his emperor body could not bear it, and was on the verge of ruin. But then, Yu Chang stretched out his hand to directly release his emperor's luck, blocking the great offensive. Yu Chang. Zhen Wuyang stretched out his hand to grasp, but he fell into the void because he had endured most of the offensive. Want to go? You can't protect yourself. Jian Wushuang grinned grimly, and his palms suddenly emptied, which actually restrained Zhen Wuyang and prevented him from taking any action. "Zhenwu, you're looking for death." He burst out loudly, and desperately broke through the barrier and slammed into Jian Wushuang. "So you still have today." Jian Wushuang sneered coldly, and slammed his punch without fancy. Facing each other, the emperor is empty. They retreated thousands of feet at the same time, but Zhen Wuyang took a step faster and ran into Jian Wushuang again. Dehui condensed into a treasure, as if awakened from the ancient times, with an overwhelming aura pressed down. This is also a full blow, a real rage belonging to the emperor. Jian Wushuang responded in time, but everything was a bit late. The unspeakable emperor's luck made everything gloomy, swallowing and concealing everything. Under this emperor treasure phase, even the emperor body is rapidly decimating. At this moment, Jianwu had a hideous appearance on both sides, and he could feel that his luck was swallowed. "Zhenwu, I want you to die." The giant voice containing the promise heavenly Tao made the entire desolate emperor realm tremble and shattered even more. Jian Wushuang laughed frantically. "I die. Do you dare to let me die? As long as I die, you will be hit hard in an instant, and the emperor heaven will die. I ask you, do you dare?" Zhen Wuyang didn't speak, looking at Jian Wushuang who was wrapped in the endless emperor's luck. The emperor's eyes were finally covered by killing intent. "In that case, then you will die." 5 fingers closed, palms condensed. At this moment, the mountains and seas disappeared, and the emperor broke into the sky. The entire wilderness of the emperor world was shattered into powder and turned into nothingness. Almost at the same time, auspicious clouds shrouded and the powerful Shaojishan trembled violently. This kind of tremor lasted for a long time, allowing all Wangu elders to wake up from their deep sleep and look towards the boundless void. Chang Ling, who was sitting on the fairy tree, also noticed these changes for the first time. Shaojishan, which has been peaceful and calm for countless years, suddenly gusty wind, and the auspicious clouds in the sky turned dark red. Chang Ling's heart throbbed inexplicably, and had an extremely bad premonition. "Sister Ling, what are you looking at? How could Shaojishan become like this?" Amy shook her palm and asked with her head up. Chang Ling came back to her senses and rubbed her little head. "Nothing, there should be something happening, but it won't affect you." Amy nodded obediently, and then asked, "Does that affect Brother Jian?" Chang Ling's heart trembled when she heard the words, and then reluctantly smiled. "Don't think about it. Your Brother Jian is very good, no one will hurt him." Amy nodded and stopped asking. But the worry in her eyes became more solemn. She clearly remembered that he disappeared shortly after Jian Wushuang defeated Qing Shan. Those who disappeared together were Emperor Zhen Wuyang and Uncle Yu, and a group of Wangu elders. The turbulence in Shaojishan now has something to do with their departure. Could it be that all these changes were caused by him? The desolate emperor realm has completely died, the sky is broken, and everything is floating gravel. With the support of the elder Wangu, Yu Chang raised his head to look at the void. There are two emperors. One emperor was standing, and the other emperor was also standing, but was already shaky and seemed to be sleeping at any time. The emperor's blood containing the fetters of numerology oozes from the emperor's body, and then spills into the void, immortal forever. He has no blood on his face, but the emperor's eyes are still cold, unyielding, and resentful. Zhen Wuyang stood in front of him without any waves. Then, Zhen Wuyang raised his palm, and his palm was purely killing. Emperor Jian Wushuang's eyes were wide open, a great horror between life and death, so that he could not even speak. "Zhen Wuyang, do you dare to kill me? Why don't you dare?" he said, his voice no longer nostalgic, only Sen Han. The killing intent is enveloped, and the endless emperor shines. But the next moment, an old palm was placed on Zhen Wuyang's raised arm. "Emperor, no. The comer is Yu Chang." Zhen Wuyang looked at him. "Why?" "Because of this, it is unfair to Wushuang, little friend." Yu Chang said slowly, "Emperor Zhenwu should bear the crime and punishment, and cannot be added to Wushuang, little friend. Because he did nothing, he was destroyed, which is unfair to him." After listening, Zhen Wuyang glanced at Jian Wushuang, and then said, "But what about him? If he doesn't get rid of it for a day, DACU will be unstable for a day." Yu Chang was also silent, because he didn't know what to do. The Emperor Zhenwu's emperor body is now completely integrated with Jian Wushuang, and even Jian Wushuang's divine mind is likely to have been swallowed and absorbed. Jian Wushuang at this moment has almost become Zhenwu emperor. Even Yu Chang was not sure whether Jian Wushuang was still alive. If there is really no way to expel Zhenwu emperor, then only the result of killing together will remain. Related suggestion. Chapter 5034. And the result of the killing together was the ending that Yu Chang would never want to see. Because he has a certain unique feeling about Jian Wushuang, that feeling is kind, and some unexplainable factors. It would be the biggest mistake if he was beheaded so unclearly. Seeing the two emperors standing in a stalemate in front of him, Jian Wushuang, who was almost dying, a secret smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He didn't expect that the owner of this immortal body he occupied could actually make Yu Changju intercede. In this way, I'm afraid Zhen Wuyang will not be a killer. Indeed, as he thought, Zhen Wuyang also fell into silence, and stopped doing it. Because he was originally a part of Zhen Wuyang, once he fell completely, Zhen Wuyang would never be relaxed, and he would no longer even be an emperor. Before he smiled triumphantly, his complexion suddenly changed, and the emperor body accelerated and shattered. "No, no, how is it possible? How can you not be dead yet?" Jian Wushuang cried out, the emperor's body faltering. "Okay." Zhen Wuyang and Yu Chang wondered at the same time, not knowing why he was so gaff. But immediately afterwards, the constantly spilling emperor's blood and the accelerated demise of the emperor's luck made them aware of the change. Could it be that the Wushuang little friend who was captured from the immortal body has not fallen? Yu Chang asked in surprise. Zhen Wuyang couldn't believe it at all. Even if Jian Wushuang was able to defeat the third-rank Dayan immortal, it would never be possible that he would persist for so long under the emperor's fortune and have not yet died. But this change in the emperor's body still made them have to believe that Jian Wushuang did not die. In the boundless mind. At this moment, Jian Wushuang stood in the mad sand, looking forward with a pale face. In front of him is the Emperor Zhenwu, who is almost frustrated. "Return my fairy body to me, and I will let you go," Jian Wushuang said weakly. In such a war between the emperor and the emperor, he was a person who had completely witnessed it. Even though his spiritual thoughts were perfect, he was on the verge of collapse. Emperor Zhenwu was anxious and frustrated. He never thought that Jian Wushuang would still be alive. It's you. You're going to die. Now you voluntarily fall asleep, I will spare your life, otherwise I want you to die on the spot. Jian Wushuang sighed faintly, and said no more. In the next moment, a black feather that covered the sky suddenly spread out behind him. With the unfolding of this black feather, a bird chasing treasure that almost occupies more than half of the sand sea of divine mind appeared. It is wearing dark blue wings of flowing clouds, with hexagons on the head, and each corner is a different color, magnificent and mysterious. Then, it slowly opened its eye wheels, and the pure golden pupil seemed to see through the universe. It was barren, the breath of ancient silence, from the Wangu era, unimaginable. With the appearance of this bird-chasing bird and Jian Wushuang's changes, Emperor Zhenwu, who was originally anxious, felt a deep chill in his heart. He never expected that in the depths of Jian Wushuang's spiritual consciousness, he would have the aura of an emperor. The emperor's luck is fragmented, the emperor's blood is gushing, and the emperor's body is not miserable. In the void, Jian Wushuang was tumbling frantically, his luck quickly declining. Zhen Wuyang and Yu Chang looked at each other, and then shot together, and the emperor's luck turned into chains, entwining him completely. Immediately afterwards, a group of Wangu veterans came to their place, and they worked together to release their own luck and reshape the deserted emperor world. The void was being repaired, and the endless crushed stones and powder gathered again. The luck of the nearly 50 Wangu elders was too terrible to repair any great realm. And this desolate emperor realm was completely restored within dozens of breaths. Seeing this situation, Zhen Wuyang directly stretched out his hand with a wave, and the earth swelled immediately, forming a majestic mountain. Immediately afterwards, the two emperors joined forces and tied Jian Wushuang on the sacred mountain. As the last ray of emperor's luck faded away, there was no movement in him. Emperor Zhenwu didn't die. Yu Chang looked at Zhen Wuyang and asked. He nodded. No, but I can feel him falling asleep. Yu Chang said again, so let Wushuang little friend leave? Zhen Wuyang frowned, and finally shook his head. No, if Zhenwu is not removed for 1 day, he will be sealed here for 1 day until Zhenwu is stripped from him. Yu Chang was silent, he could not make a decision, but Zhen Wuyang's decision was indeed the best solution. If Zhenwu is not stripped for a day, it will be a disaster, and Jian Wushuang will naturally never be able to get out of the bondage. Zhen Wuyang wanted to say something, but in the end everything was only put into a sigh. In this battle between the emperor and the emperor, the final result was not satisfactory. Emperor Zhenwu fell into a deep sleep, his emperor body was fragmented, but he could no longer be stripped from Jian Wushuang's immortal body because they had been completely integrated. This is an end without ending, and finally ended hastily. For Yu Jian Wushuang, this was a total disaster. He did nothing and was sealed in this wild world for endless years. The emperor finally left, and the deserted emperor world fell into eternal silence. In the endless darkness, the figure bound by the chains of Wandao Emperor on the top of the mountain quietly opened his eyes. Zhenfeng countless Chinese years, Zhenwu, I want you to die. The auspicious clouds return, the celestial spirit is full, and everything is calm again. Hey, have you seen that the elders all came back from injuries, some even suffered severe injuries? What's this? I saw that even Uncle Yu was injured. What? Where did you see it? You can't talk nonsense about this. What I lie to you is what I saw with my own eyes. Although it is only a distant view, it is absolutely correct. It's still very unlikely. Who can hurt Uncle Yu? I'm afraid our ancestors together are not enough. This matter is strange. I am afraid that the injuries suffered by the ancestors will be attributed to the forbidden area. Forbidden land, waste world, forget it, don't speak arrogantly. In the sound of discussion that was going up and down, and coming and going, Chang Ling, who was sitting under the fairy tree, quietly opened his eyes. Those noisy discussions are all disciples of the various veterans. Is a candidate for the heavenly officials next to the 7 emperors under the Jian Wuyang seat in the future. Their discussion at this moment has a certain degree of credibility. The abnormal change that occurred in Xiajie Mountain is also very likely to be related to that forbidden area. Chang Ling was involuntarily meditating, She inexplicably thought of that free and easy figure, in the monarch dojo, using her own strength to defeat Dianxian Jian Wushuang. Did he leave, or went elsewhere? Couldn't. Xiao Jishan's change has something to do with him, right? Thoughts are like a flood, out of control. Chang Ling got up and looked at the ethereal sky in front of him. He must have left. How could Xiao Jishan's changes have anything to do with him? Please remember the domain name of the book's first publication. Mobile version reading URL. Chapter 5035. After thinking about it for a while, Chang Ling went back to the fairy tree and closed his eyes and sat up. But this enlightenment didn't last long, and the slightly puckered eyebrows betrayed her state of mind at the moment. No, is Xiao Jishan's mutation really related to him? At this moment, a crisp voice suddenly sounded, and then a small figure fell on Chang Ling's lap. What does it have to do with him, Sister Aya? The visitor was Amy, a small face made of pink jade, looking at her curiously. Chang Ling recovered and rubbed her little head. It's nothing. Have you seen your brother Jian? Amy said. Big brother Jian? I have never seen him before. Didn't he leave with Grandpa? I saw it with my own eyes. Hearing this, Chang Ling's heart trembled, and a bad feeling came to her heart. She had roughly guessed that this time Xiao Jishan's change might really be inseparable from Jian Wushuang. Sister Ling, what are you thinking? Is there any news from brother Jian? Amy asked eagerly. Chang Ling smiled slightly. No, you don't need to worry, practice hard, don't be lazy, you know? Oh, Amy answered, and then sat aside, concentrating on sitting up with his eyes closed. What's going on? I care so much about what he does. Obviously there is only one side. What am I thinking about? And she shook her head mockingly, and sat down together. Shang Yun curls up, and the whole Xiao Jishan is calm and peaceful, just like the beginning of creation. There are fairies, among which the candidate heavenly officials follow the Wangu elders to practice and enlighten, which is a real fairyland. But in this peaceful and quiet fairyland, a fairy seemed extremely impatient, his brows stretched and frowned from time to time, as if thinking about something. Soon, she opened her eyes again, looked at the surrounding environment quietly, and then said in a low voice, Amy, do you want to see your brother Jian? The wind and dust were dying, and in the fierce wind mixed with silky black mist, a thin body, but with a colorful radiance, was moving forward at a constant speed. She is Chang Ling. She left Xiao Jishan all alone and walked towards the wasteland she had never set foot in. She didn't know where the desolate world was, and even in Xiajie Mountain, apart from the Wangu elders, there were no fairies and no candidates for heavenly officials. But with Amy, the lead boy, she still knew the approximate location of the wasteland, and then quietly moved forward. Originally, Amy also strongly requested to go with him, but how could Chang Ling let her follow, and made a small plan to let her stay behind Xiajie Mountain and head to the wasteland alone. Desolate realm, desolate emperor realm. This is a place where Yixian has never been involved since the beginning of its birth. It is a secret world, treacherous and mysterious. Everything was shrouded in a dark mist. Even if Dianxian set foot here, he would feel intense anxiety. Here, for Chang Ling, who had just set foot in Dian Immortal more than 50 million years ago, it was extremely dangerous. After condensing her mind and covering the fairy body with a layer of strength, she only breathed a sigh of relief. But looking at the front that was full of ancient and desolate atmosphere, Chang Ling sighed again. What am I doing? I must be crazy. I will look for an unrelated immortal. Forget it, because of Amy's face, I will find it hard to find it. In the ancient wilderness, above the ancient land, there was only a slender figure, walking slowly but firmly. And while she was moving forward, she didn't notice the clouds of black and grey mist all over her body, slowly gathering. Where will he be? Will he be more dangerous as he goes forward? Facing the clouds covering the sky, Chang Ling was a little worried. But the next moment, the crisis came much faster than she expected, and an unprecedented life-and-death crisis suddenly came to her heart. She almost exhausted all her strength, and the fairy body stepped onto the ground instantly. Following it, a giant claw cover about 100,000 miles across came down. Boom! The earth is shattered, and there are cracks in the sky, instantly splitting and stretching for millions of miles. The dust is immense. The giant claw was almost touching her back. Chang Ling was already speechless in amazement, staring at the scene in a daze. This giant claw, like the great pillar of the sky, protruded from the clouds and easily split the earth. The entire giant claw is covered with a layer, thick and dense silver-gray scales. 5 finger claws are enough to tear out 5 tianhe. Chang Lingxi has no doubt that if she didn't escape in time, she would be killed directly by this giant claw. Time seemed to stagnate, and she still stood in the void, not knowing whether to escape or not. At this moment, Yunyang suddenly surged violently, and a huge beast head with no bounds came out of it. It showed bright amber vertical pupils, like tianhe spring water, reflecting Chang Ling's slender figure completely. This beast head, like a dragon but not a dragon, like a beast and not a beast, is full of a wild and strange aura of chaos. Yangxian, who allowed you to come here privately? The huge sound is heavy, covering the world, making everything tremble and worship. Chang Ling was startled, and swallowed with difficulty. I just broke into this room accidentally. I never thought this is a forbidden place. The heaven and the earth are silent. The behemoth that is hidden in the clouds and shows only a corner does not speak anymore, turning its pupils like tianhe spring water, looking at her, seeming to identify the true and false in her words. As if endless time has passed, in the torment of waiting, the giant beast said again, "If this is the case, I will forgive you without guilt. Leave here immediately, and no longer enter." Chang Ling breathed out softly after hearing the words, and finally let go of her hanging heart. The giant beast didn't intend to embarrass her. After warning this sentence, he sank into the endless clouds and disappeared. Seeing the earth torn apart for nearly 1,000,000 miles, she still had lingering fears. That kind of oppression was so terrifying that even Dian Immortal could not give birth to resistance. Everything returned to dead silence, as if nothing had happened. Converging his mind, Chang Ling didn't dare to stay any longer. She urged herself to escape from here. But after she turned back a few steps, she stopped again, seeming to be fighting in her heart. Then she raised her head secretly, pretending to check the situation of the 4 fields inadvertently. After seeing nothing unusual, Chang Ling gritted her teeth secretly, as if she had made some decision. Her figure suddenly turned back, ready to break into the depths of the wilderness. But as she turned around, another giant claw of the sky covered the sky and stood out from the clouds, shaking the earth, blocking the way. I will leave now. Chang Ling spoke with difficulty, leaving the last sentence, and then fled and left this desolate plain. And almost at the same time, in the depths of this wild world, the figure bound to the top of the mountain opened his eyes, and then fell silent again. Chapter 50-36. Leaving the wasteland, she had lingering fears. That kind of breathtaking oppression made her reluctant to think about it. Where is there, and why does it exist? She was secretly shocked, because she felt the breath of the giant beast, not weaker than the Wangu elders in Xiaojie Mountain. And at the last moment, she saw an unimaginable scene. The giant beast's giant claws drooping from the clouds, was actually bound by tens of thousands of chain. Who has such power to imprison it there? Is it the emperor? Thinking of this, Chang Ling was shocked to the extreme, and at the same time he was even more certain that only the emperor had such strength. Will he also be imprisoned by the emperor there? She gritted her teeth and obviously had an answer in her heart, but the answer was too unfair. With the power of Yangxian, if he shakes Dianxian under true Wuyang's seat, should he be exiled and imprisoned? Chang Ling knew that the wind would destroy Mu Xiu in the forest, and it was precisely because of this that she felt unwilling again. But all this was helpless, she couldn't shake it at all, and even entered the wasteland. Thinking of this, she sighed and returned to Shaojishan. Sister Aya, I actually fell asleep. In the Xiaojie Mountains shrouded in auspicious clouds, under the fairy tree, Amy lowered his head and said to Nwonuo, with 2 small fleshy hands behind him, as if doing something wrong. Chang Ling smiled reluctantly, stretched out her slender palm and rubbed her head. It's okay, Amy, don't blame yourself, it's not where you should go. Amy nodded, and then hurriedly said, Sister Ling, did you see Brother Jian when you went there? She smiled bitterly. I have never seen it before. Then Chang Ling told Amy about everything that happened there. Ah, no, is it so scary there? After listening, Amy said in surprise. Chang Ling sighed slightly. Far more terrifying than I said, so it is almost impossible to meet him. What to do then? Brother Jian must not have an accident, otherwise Xiao Dijuan. Said this, Amy with an anxious face paused, and then suddenly looked up at her with hope in his eyes. Yes, little emperor, Brother Yang. Chang Ling wondered, what's the matter with Guan Xiaodi? As if caught a life-saving straw, Amy said, Sister Ling, you don't know that Brother Jian and Xiao Dijun are close friends. If Xiao Dijun knows that he sees Brother Jian trapped in the wilderness, he will definitely come to help. After listening, Chang Ling was silent. Even though she had practiced enlightenment in Xiajie Mountain since she was young, she still knew something about the outside world. Especially the situation of the 7 emperors under the seat of Zhenwu Yang, she knows best, because this is the most basic criterion for candidates for heavenly officials. It is rumored that the emperor's son under the seat of Zhenwu Yang is the most perverse and violent, and has a withdrawn personality. He never made friends with any immortals, and even regarded his 6 brothers as enemies. Several years ago, Chang Ling watched the son Yang from a distance. He was basically in line with the rumors. He was pale, handsome and charming, and perverse and violent. He is hostile to all the gods in the heaven. This also caused that even the Wangu elders in the heavenly court retreated and gave courtesy to them. There is even more rumors that when he was a minor, the son Yang would fight with Zhen Wuyang to fight, and used a strategy to take down the last heaven in the Daisy domain for Zhen Wuyang. All these deeds added together, so that the entire Darciu, and even all the eternal fairy in the heavenly court, the day eternal fairy, dare not despise this junk emperor. And this is why she was surprised by what she said to Amy. In her opinion, it is absolutely impossible for the emperor's son to have someone close to him, let alone a close friend. And watching Jian Wushuang suffered heavy injuries and being brought to Shaojishan by Uncle Yu alone made her never think of the relationship between the two. After thinking about it again and again, Chang Ling said, Amy, you can't talk nonsense, how could they have a relationship? Seeing that she didn't believe it, Amy said anxiously, Really, I won't lie to your sister Ling. In the heavenly banquet not long ago, Brother Jian came with Brother Yang, and they also got the fairy peach for that banquet together. Chang Linglius' eyebrows trembled, and she finally got the impression that the winner of the fairy peach in the last heavenly feast was indeed the son of the emperor. And she also heard that after Gongzi Yang finally got Xiandao, he divided Xiandao into 2 and gave the other half to a young man. Combined with Jian Wushuang's horrified performance in the emperor's dojo, Chang Ling finally believed in Amy's words. But, the emperor, would you be willing to take risks to rescue him? Chang Ling asked, with doubts in his words. Amy laughed, her big eyes narrowed into crescent shapes. Don't worry, Sister Ling, I can feel that Brother Yang has a different mood with Brother Jian, he will definitely come to save Brother Jian. She hesitated again and finally made up her mind, then go and see the great emperor. Amy nodded desperately. But, candidates for heavenly officials, you can't leave Shaojishan at will. There are not so many but Sister Aya, Amy will have a way to let you go. Okay. The clouds and smoke will go back and forth. Like being in a dreamlike cloud and smoke, above the jade steps, leaning against a figure. He wore a luxurious suit with mountains and rivers painted on it, with a tendency to swallow the sky. Leaning on the jade steps, he is half asleep and half awake, not knowing what the world is moving. In the heavenly hall, the silence can be heard, and there is no aura of eternal immortality. I don't know how long it took, the closed gate of the heavenly hall slowly opened, and then a thin purple robe entered the hall, walking briskly. The thin purple robe quietly came to him and leaned over and said in a low voice, His Royal Highness, there is a fairy who came to see you in 6 days and said that there is something important to discuss with your highness. The figure on the jade steps hasn't even opened his eyes, as if he is still sleeping. And the thin purple robe fixed his posture, waiting for a reply. For a long time, a cold voice sounded. No, if you don't leave, kill it. The thin purple robe nodded and promised, for every order, he will firmly implement, never asking why. He turned around and was about to leave, but after a few steps, he stopped again and turned around to add a word. His Royal Highness, that fairy is a Dian immortal, I can feel from the breath of her body, she should have walked out of Xiajie Mountain. I'm not interested, let her leave. The figure on the jade step said, There was still only a cold killing intent in the words. The thin purple robe was silent, and finally said again, "His Royal Highness, it was little Amy who asked her to come to see you." Above the jade level, he quietly opened his eyes, which contained supreme majesty. Chapter 50-37. The fairy clouds surged, and the heavenly hall was solemn and magnificent. This is the first time that Chang Ling has left Shaojishan in a true sense. While her heart is extremely tense, she is also full of strong curiosity about everything. Especially when she came to the six-day realm where the Emperor Sun was, her curiosity reached its peak, because she smelled the destruction of the void. Although this smell of destruction almost disappeared, she was still aware of it. She was curious as to what the Six Heavens realm had experienced before, so much so that it was still full of destruction. Standing in the big lonely sky, looking at the still-closed temple from a distance, Chang Ling was already a little angry. She was a Dayan immortal at any rate, and she was a first-class existence in the entire Daisy domain today, and she never thought that she would be left outside at the first meeting. Although the interviewer was the son of the emperor, she still angered her. Just when she was considering whether to turn around and leave, the temple opened, and the thin purple robe flew up to her, taking charge of the lead. Suppressing the unhappiness in his heart, Chang Ling entered the temple. Yunyang curled up, a slightly sweet smelly scent wafted in the temple. The first time I smelled it, it made people uncomfortable, but I would be immersed in it before I knew it. Chang Ling's nose moved slightly, obviously feeling uncomfortable with the smell in the temple. After the thin purple robe led her to the temple, he quickly left and closed the temple door easily. There was a tremor in her heart, and a crisis surged in her heart. Thinking of the perverse and violent Emperor's son, she became nervous. Even if she was Dayan immortal, she had the urge to flee at any time. And just as she was thinking about it, a cold voice sounded, "What did you do in 6 days?" Accompanied by this sound, a figure dressed in extravagant clothes walked out from the depths of the hall slowly. Chang Ling held his breath and became more nervous. Even after a few Chinese years, she still recognized at a glance the son of the emperor, Sun Yang. Xiao Dijun frowned slightly, and his patience was obviously gradually disappearing. "Say, what are you going to do in 6 days?" After regaining his senses, Chang Ling said nervously, Back to your highness, I think, please save an immortal." Hearing this, he raised his brows slightly and the corners of his mouth sneered, "Do we know each other? Don't you think it is a bit absurd?" Chang Ling also consciously asked something wrong, but she still said, "Although it is a little absurd, he must be a little important to you, so please help." The little emperor was already out of interest, and immediately turned and waved, "I'm not interested, you can leave, don't let me see you again." Chang Ling was stunned. He didn't expect him to be so cold and uncomfortable. Then the suppressed resentment and unhappiness in her heart made her angrily said, "I knew you were so unfeeling, I would never come here to see you if I died. If this is the case, let him die in the wilderness." After speaking the last sentence, she prepared to leave without looking back. At this moment, Xiao Dijun's voice sounded again, "What's his name?" Although Chang Ling was angry, she still spoke, "I only know that there is a sword in his name, and Amy calls him Brother Jian." Above the jade level, the figure in the luxurious clothes trembled suddenly, and then ran down the jade level directly, and came to Chang Ling. Then he stretched out his hands and clasped her arms tightly, and said in a gloomy manner, "Sword, is it called Jian Wushuang? Answer me." Chang Ling was shocked by the sudden change, but she forgot how to speak. "Okay, it seems to be by this name." When he got the answer, the corner of Xiao Dijun's eyes trembled. After he released his palm, he sat down on the jade steps as if exhausted. Seeing the little emperor who had changed too much before and after, Chang Ling was astonished, and at the same time the stone in his heart was settled. She asked, "Save or not?" The desperate little monarch slowly raised his head and looked at her. "Are you from Shaojishan? Tell me about his situation, and don't hide anything." Chang Ling nodded, and then explained clearly the first time he saw Jian Wushuang and a series of things that happened afterwards. "This is everything I know. After that, I tried to enter the wasteland to find him, but I failed in the end, so I came to you." She took a deep breath and said, then looked at Xiao Dijun sincerely, "Please also save him." Xiao Dijun turned his back to her, like a sculpture motionless. I don't know how long it took before he slowly turned around, a touch of complexity and scrutiny flashed in his eyes. What is your relationship with him? Chang Ling was startled, obviously unaware that his focus could be so strange. This we just met together, and we have seen very few of them. They can only be regarded as ordinary friends. Ordinary friends? Xiao Dijun smiled. Ordinary friends would be willing to take risks with their bodies. Will they leave Xiao Jishan secretly fortunately and ask an emperor who has never seen him for help? Chang Ling was dumb and didn't know how to answer. The little emperor smiled rather than smile, step by step close to the forward. Chang Ling kept backing away, extremely nervous. He slowly leaned over, his eyes revealing a charming charm. Since you are from Xiao Jishan, and you are Dian Immortal again, you must be the candidate for the emperor's heavenly official, right? What are you going to do? Before she knew it, Chang Ling was in front of Shan Haizhu. Of course I want to do everything, Xiao Dijun smiled evilly. My great heaven official has been selected and will never change, but you have a great appetite for me, and I don't want to give up. So I want to ask you, would you like to be an empress? My empress. The thoughts in his mind seemed to explode Wanjuan thunder, and Chang Ling's mind was blank at this moment. She would never have thought that Xiao Dijuan would say such a thing to her when they first met. Ridiculous, it is ridiculous. While she was in a shocked blank, Xiao Dijun stretched out her palm and provoked her beautiful jaw. Chang Ling was clear in an instant, and her expression became cold. Facing the frivolous little emperor, she stretched out her hand and pulled it up. But this slap did not fall, and was stopped by Xiao Dijuan raising his hand. He seemed to be smiling but not smiling, leaning over and whispering, "Don't let your palm print fall on the emperor's body, the consequences are far beyond your ability to bear." Chang Ling hesitated. Since the beginning of her spiritual wisdom, she has been practicing and enlightening in Xiajie Mountain. Everything is given by the emperor. Naturally, the emperor's order cannot be violated. But right now, as the crown prince, the emperor's son, Sun Yang, did not dare to violate anything that she had done to her. Even if she is Dian Immortal, she dare not go against it. Seeing Chang Ling, who chose to endure silently, Xiao Dijuan raised his eyebrows and smiled, and then leaned over to face her Tanku without any warning. Chapter 50-38. Her pupils dilated for an instant, and the corners of her ears were red like a drop of blood. That is caused by excessive tension. The blue silks merge, covering up everything that happened. Chang Ling Qingming's spiritual thoughts collapsed in an instant. This kind of impact was too big for her, so that her mind went blank. With an almost arrogant attitude, he shattered all her defenses, as well as shame. That kind of sentiment was warm and terrifying, but I didn't know how to resist it. At this moment, the gate of the heavenly hall opened, and the thin purple robe leaned forward to check the situation in the hall. After seeing this scene of spring melting, he consciously retracted his figure and closed the hall door by the way. And Chang Ling finally recovered. A flash of humiliation and resentment flashed in her eyes, and then her teeth lightly opened, biting down like a small beast. Yin Hongshan's blood then spilled, slashing along her sandal mouth, and a blood line flowed out of the extremely beautiful line of the lower jaw. Xiao Dijun opened his eyes, and the supreme cold prestige burst out. Chang Ling stepped back, leaning against Shan Haizhu, looking directly at him with humiliating eyes, without worry or fear at all. The wound on Xiao Dijun's thin lips also healed in an instant. As if nothing had happened before, his eyes returned to the coldness of 1,000 miles away. After sorting out some scattered extravagant clothes, Xiao Dijuan said in a calm tone, "The thing just now, you should assume nothing happened. If it is passed out, I will kill you." Chang Ling's figure trembled, and the humiliation in her eyes was completely replaced by anger. She sneered, and she didn't even care to wipe the blood from the corner of her mouth. "If it spreads out, it will cost me my life. It is obviously that you are the first to be frivolous than me, but use this as a threat. Even if you are the son of the emperor, I don't believe that the emperor would be so partial." The little emperor smiled when he heard the words. "It won't be any good for you to spread the sentence. You and I know it. If you want to be my empress, it's a different matter. You dream. Even if I die, I will never be your empress." Chang Ling said angrily. He seemed uninterested in this, and turned and walked towards the depths of the temple. Are you going to save it? Chang Ling said anxiously through gritted teeth. I save him, it's a matter between us, you don't want to take care of it. After he said these last words, his figure sank into the depths of the temple. Chang Ling stomped angrily, wishing to swallow her alive. Damn it, not only is frivolous and lustful, but also so perverse and violent. If anyone becomes his heavenly official in the future, he will never end well. The Tianmen reopened, and she didn't want to wait for a moment. She left the Tiandian and waited in degution. His Royal Highness, you shouldn't treat the candidate heavenly official that way. If she goes back to Shaojishan to say a few words to the Emperor, I'm afraid she will. The thin purple robe didn't say more. Little Dijuan said, don't worry, she won't say a word, and I did that to her, there is a reason. Also, Wu Shuang came out of the Sea of No Edge alive, but he should have been imprisoned in the wilderness by the Emperor. I am going to help. After hearing these words, the thin purple robe, who was still extremely calm, trembled suddenly, and his muddy eyes couldn't believe it. Sword, Master Sword, came back alive from there. Don't tell me this beforehand, especially to those in Xiao Gutian, don't let them know. The thin purple robe nodded and promised, then backed out and walked out of the temple. This time, without letting Chang Ling wait outside for too long, Xiao Dijuan jumped out of the temple. What surprised her was that he didn't wear the extravagant clothes of Miaoshan Huai this time, instead he changed into a plain and flowing uniform. And the long hair is no longer draped, but with a golden strap at random behind him, giving people an indescribable warmth. Let's go, you are responsible for leading the way. Xiao Dijun carried his hands on his back, and his voice was icy from 1,000 miles away. Also, don't look directly at me with this kind of eyes, this is an insult to the Emperor. Chang Lingianya was about to shatter, and almost exhausted his full strength, gave him a vicious look before rushing out of Da Gutian with anger. The two bodies were like two stars and streamers, and they soon sank into the depths of the void. Are you sure Wu Shuang was imprisoned in the wilderness? Not too sure, but it's very possible. I can't look into it in depth. It's too dangerous. On the way, Xiao Dijuan frowned slightly. He just faintly heard about the wasteland, but he was able to confirm that it was indeed the Emperor realm of Zhenwuyang, which was extremely mysterious. And knowing that there are immortals there is almost to the extreme. If Jian Wushuang really walked out of the borderless sea and was spotted by Zhenwuyang, he would really be imprisoned in the wilderness. The wilderness is mysterious, Wu Yangxian knows what is hidden there, it is a big mystery. But even so, the little emperor still plans to venture into the wilderness alone. The wild world is an unnamed world, and there is no way to find an entrance from the outside world. You can only enter from Xiajie Mountain. And Shaojishan is a leisure place for Zhenwuyang and a group of elders, and outsiders may be discovered in an instant. But Xiao Dijuan didn't care about these, he didn't even conceal his breath, and entered the Xiajie Mountain. Hey, stay back, we're going to save him, isn't it just a failure to be found before entering? Chang Ling was heartbroken and persuaded him in a good voice. Xiao Dijun glanced at her sideways, and walked forward on his own. Chang Ling Inya wanted to break, but had no choice but to quickly go to the wasteland. Here is the wasteland. He was a little surprised. Although he had heard of it, he was still relatively vague about the real place of the wasteland. Chang Ling nodded, did not say much, and entered first without any hesitation. Seeing this scene, a touch of cryptic complexity flashed deep in Xiao Dijun's eyes, and after a moment of silence, he stepped into it. The dead silence of the ancient barren world is the unchanging main color of the barren world. Even years will be barren and meaningless. The mist of gray and black silk threads covered almost the entire wasteland, and the visibility never exceeded 1,000 miles. In it, is accompanied by barrenness and death. Attention, there is a giant beast in Yunyang, even me. Looking at Shino, Chang Ling reminded in a low voice, not even daring to breathe. Xiao Dijun squinted at her again. Since you are invincible, why do you come in to die? She was silent for a while, inexplicably feeling that there was some truth. After a while, she reacted and said with embarrassment, you must take care of it. I don't believe you can be the enemy. He refused to argue, walked alone, and his brows became sharp in an instant. As early as when he entered this place, he noticed a powerful aura that could not be ignored if there was nothing. This kind of breath surpassed imagination, and it was not something Yangxian could contend. But he still moved forward resolutely. Chapter 5039. Chang Ling pursed her thin lips, wondering whether to leave here or move forward together. At this moment, everything she did had nothing to do with her, but she persisted. She didn't even know how it would benefit her to do these things. But when she thought of Jian Wushuang's amazing talents and the predictable miserable situation on the Emperor's Dao, she couldn't bear it. Although Chang Ling firmly believed that the Emperor would not be jealous, Jian Wushuang's original appearance was too terrifying. With the power of cultivating immortals, he could defeat Dian Immortal, which was unprecedented in the past. From the perspective of the Emperor's situation, it was more appropriate to never imprison him or kill him. A stunned Tianjiao who is unimaginable on the path of practice should not be so silent and perish. Chang Ling's eyes gradually became firm, and then she moved forward resolutely. Xiao Dijun regarded her as nothing, and moved forward. "You can't do this, it's easy to be spotted by that big guy," Chang Ling said with some worry. The next moment, the layers of clouds were pulled away, and an eye pupil that was several times larger than the giant sun opened quietly. The pure amber color is like the tranquil Tianhe spring water. The vertical pupil in the center is pitch black to the extreme, fully reflecting the figures of Xiao Dijun and Chang Ling. They swallowed their throats at the same time and backed slowly. "Yangxian, this is not a place where you can set foot, leave quickly, and spare you a way of life." In the clouds and smoke, this giant beast issued a warning. Chang Ling's eyes were solemn, and he no longer knew whether the war had retreated. Xiao Dijun quickly recovered his composure, facing the giant beast, and said in a condensed voice, "I came to this world to look for an immortal. As long as I find it, I leave immediately." As the words fell, clouds of smoke swept across the void, an unimaginable head of beast protruded from the clouds, and only endless majesty remained in the eyes of the giant sun. "No. The huge sound is bursting, and the force can be drained." Xiao Dijun's face was cold. "What if I insist on entering?" "Then stay here." A dragon-like beast head descended from the sky, with infinite might. The distance between the two is even less than 100 feet. He smiled slyly, his eyebrows were sharp. "That seat, I will show you today." After he finished speaking, his immeasurable power exploded, shaking the sky and the earth, tearing everything apart in an instant. At the same time, an inch of light appeared, restrained by hundreds of millions of terrifying powers, and went straight to the giant beast's huge eye wheel. "You dare!" The giant beast was furious. It never thought that a fellow like an ant would actually be the first to violent. It was completely furious, and a barren breath gushed out of its nose. The pure to the extreme inch of light, even if it is sharp, it is impossible to blind the eye wheel of the giant beast, and even after it collides with the barren aura, it is broken. As for Xiao Dijun, what he wanted was this opportunity. He was almost out of shape at the moment when the light burst into bloom, and Chang Ling also reacted at the right time, releasing her own strength with firm eyes. The strength is like a horse, sweeping thousands of thousands, and instantly entangled the head of the giant beast, caught death. The giant beast was furious, and the giant sound erupted like layers of eddy currents. Chang Ling also backed away thousands of feet. The blood in the fairy body was tumbling, but her figure did not stay in the slightest. She swept up again, the endless strength training came out of her hands. She is buying time for Xiao Dijun. With eyes facing each other, Xiao Dijun turned around and glanced at her, then swiftly swept into the depths of the wilderness. But the next moment, the chaotic cloud layer suddenly broke open, and a giant claw covering the sky came down. This huge claw covering the sky is really too big, one wide enough to cover 100,000 miles of heaven and earth, directly blocking the path of Little Emperor. Astonished in his heart, the soft sword in his palm pierced the giant claw. But this sword only destroyed hundreds of scales, and couldn't shake the giant claws at all. Xiao Dijun frowned, knowing that he couldn't shake it hard. He made a decisive decision and ran towards another direction. At the same time, Chang Ling was struggling to resist the offensive of the giant beast head. Although she was already Dian immortal, facing this Wangu giant beast, it was still difficult to fight. Between the behemoth's breath and breath, it put a lot of pressure on her. She knew that she was the most right to insist on 10 breath time. The stubborn ones have to pay the price. The giant beast made a terrible voice, and the giant sound wrapped Chang Ling with the searing breath. She snorted, and her own strength was blocked at this instant. Then, a giant claw bounding nearly 1,000 dark chains came out of the clouds and directly grasped Chang Ling. She instantly felt that the fairy body was about to be shattered, and Yanli was completely blocked by some unknown force. And the giant claws that entangled and bound the chains were constantly gripping. Naughty people, I have repeatedly discouraged you, but you still don't repent. If that's the case, you will fall into my womb. The giant beast said Shunshin, and then he opened a huge mouth large enough to swallow the 10,000 heavens galaxy. Chang Ling was desperate, but couldn't control his own destiny at all, and could only fall into that huge mouth. The next moment, but suddenly change. Thousands of pure to the extreme strength training broke through the layers of clouds, entangled Chang Ling's fairy body, and then quickly retracted, at the moment, rescued her from the mouth of the giant beast. Chang Ling was shocked and her mind went blank. When she reacted, she realized that it was the Emperor's son Yang who had rescued her. How dare you? The giant beast was completely furious, and the giant claw covered by the chain came down. Faced with this overwhelming situation, Xiao Dejuan became extremely calm. I stay here, you go to find Jian Wushuang. Remember, if you dare to say a word of nonsense to him, I will kill you. After speaking these last words, he directly pushed Chang Ling to a distance of 1,000,000 feet. Then, he resolutely confronted the behemoth. Covered by the power of the sky, it easily shattered the strength of the little emperor. The giant claws held tightly, and Com completely restrained him, unable to move at all. Ant, how dare you come here? The giant beast said with a deep roar, his pupils like a huge sun reflecting his already red face. Ki, ants. In front of this seat, you are the ants. Xiao Dijun said with difficulty, because of the huge force, a ray of divine blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth, colorful divine blood. Okay. At this moment, the giant beast's eyes widened and its vertical pupils contracted. The blood of the emperor, do you belong to the blood of the emperor? Xiao Dejuan looked at him coldly, with contempt and disdain in his eyes. The next moment, the giant beast laughed, and his eyes like a huge sun were all the pleasure of revenge. It's really a pleasure to have the emperor's lineage to fight the tooth and tooth sacrifices. You must be the emperor of Zhen Wuyang. I want him to taste the pain. Xiao Dejuan was already shocked, he didn't expect this result at all. Chapter 50-40. This prisoner dragon is not afraid of his emperor bloodline, but is ready to swallow it. But he was unable to return to heaven at all, and could only watch as he threw himself into a huge mouth. But Xiao Dejuan didn't intend to die with his hands. Almost at the same time, an ultimate stream of light bloomed from his palm. It was a sword, a soft sword that never left. The soft sword carries Wanjuan power, like a dazzling inch of light, with introverted endless charm. Then, it shot up and went straight to the beast's eyes. Because this reality was so fast, that the whole body was immersed in the behemoth that swallowed the little emperor, and he didn't notice it in time. By the time it noticed it, it was already too late. It is undoubtedly terrifying that the endless trend only gathers a little and then releases it completely. The colorful Yanli burst out instantly, and the soft sword carried the ultimate inch of light, and pierced fiercely into the behemoth's eye wheel. At this moment, the giant beast shook the sky and screamed, and even the void was shattered. And its giant claws also loosened. Xiao Dijun took this opportunity to escape without any hesitation. The void was cracking, and endless clouds were surging violently. I want your life, the giant beast roared in anger. Its right eye was already dimmed, and at the center of its pupil, a soft sword was firmly embedded in it. An endless stream of light rushed out from the wound. Facing the little emperor who had fled the way, it opened its huge mouth, and a breath of ancient desolation and death gushed out. That is the force of atmospheric transport, which is not carried by any medium. Once it appears, it cannot be avoided but can only be endured. The little emperor, who rushed in the void, felt that the fairy body instantly blessed a certain strange power, which directly caused the fairy body to shatter and the meridians to shrink. He didn't even have time to urge the last ray of strength. He coughed up a mouthful of divine blood, and fell into the void with one head. And at this critical moment, Chang Ling appeared quietly. She directly reached out to support the fallen figure of Xiao Dijuan, and then swept into the depths of the wilderness without looking back. Boom! Void, the earth trembled. Then, a shocking scene appeared. The cloud and smoke that diffused the entire void surged violently at this moment, and then disappeared. And when Yunyang completely disappeared, the behemoth hidden in Yunyang completely emerged. Its figure is almost endless, boundless, like a dragon, covered with giant silver-gray scales, almost running through the entire sky of the wilderness. At the same time, a chain of chains was enough to tear the sky, penetrated through its body, and bound it firmly in the sky. This scene was too shocking and too depressing. Looking at the body of the giant beast in the sky, Chang Ling's mood had fallen to the bottom, but she never gave up, carrying Xiao Dijuan on her back, flying across the void. The behemoth that was destroyed was completely mad. No matter the chain that penetrated the body, its 4 claws moved in unison, and the cover came down. At this moment, the chains that imprisoned the giant beast were all stretched so that even the void was destroyed. Chang Ling was shocked to the point where the wasteland was shaking. This is the first time she has encountered a major crisis between life and death since she was young. She can hardly make any effective judgments, and can only watch the giant claw cover come down. Listen, keep, throw me away, you will run away first. The voice of Kiruyujuan sounded, and the little emperor reluctantly opened his eyes and said. Hearing the familiar voice behind him, Chang Ling calmed down inexplicably. She gritted her teeth and said, Impossible, I won't leave you alone. For a heavenly official, this is the most basic rule. You are just a candidate, any emperor will want you. Shut up if you don't want to die, if you say more, I will throw you here. Chang Ling's expression calmed down, and she looked back, and the giant claw was already close at hand. With a sudden change in her mind, she turned around resolutely and released all her own powers, making a loud claw. Boom! The sky trembled, and Yanli Huamang splashed. However, this Dian Immortal's full blow even only blocked the giant claw for a moment before it disappeared. Boom! The giant sound is clear, and the giant claw pats Chang Ling fiercely. She suddenly drank a mouthful of blood and was photographed in the void. At this moment, the world is silent. She only felt the moment she fell to the ground, a soft muffled hum under her body, and then no sound. Lying on her back in the deserted ground, Chang Ling's eyes were empty and the fairy body was shattered, which was not enough to support her actions. Seeing the giant claws getting closer, she sighed and closed her eyes. However, the imaginary disappearance of form and spirit did not appear, not even any pain. Chang Ling slowly opened his eyes, shocked to the extreme. Because she discovered that the giant claw did not land, but hovered in the void, and it was difficult to drop an inch. This is because of the chains, completely restricting the movements of the behemoth. It was unwilling, furious, and almost shredded the sky, which didn't help. Chang Ling laughed, and then passed out. The wilderness is silent. I don't know how long it took. When a slight rustling noise heard in her ears, she was awakened. Then she saw a green cow, a big and strong green cow. Mu Qingniu let out a muffled cry, then stared at 2 big watery eyes, tilted his head to look at Chang Ling. She was frightened, and then as if thinking of something, she hurriedly looked down her body. Only then did she see the figure of Xiao Dijuan, almost completely embedded in the earth. Chang Ling secretly said something was wrong, and hurriedly released Yanli to protect his immortal body, only then took a breath. How did you get here? A crisp childish voice sounded at this moment without any warning. Chang Ling looked up, and then noticed that on the broad and sturdy back of Qingniu, there was actually a child wearing a hat on his stomach. He was lying on the back of Qingniu, supporting his head with his hands, and looking at her warmly. With her eyes facing each other, Chang Ling was very nervous. She would never believe that a little boy riding a green bull would appear in this terrible and desolate wasteland. This is too weird to believe. How did you come here? It's dangerous here. On Qingniu's back, The boy repeated the previous sentence again, still looking at Chang Ling with warm eyes, waiting for the answer with great patience. Although she was a little at a loss, she quickly calmed down. We came here to find an immortal. After we find it, she will leave immediately, and will never stay here. The boy said again, oh, do you know where the immortal Yang is looking for? If you don't know, I'm afraid it will be difficult to find. Chang Ling was dumb for a while. She was not even sure that Jian Wushuang was imprisoned in the wilderness, let alone to determine the specific location. But she was not eager to speak, but stared at the boy lying on the blue bull. For some reason, she had an instinct. This little boy seemed to know something. Chapter 50-41. In this wasteland that has been silent for countless years, there is absolutely no possibility that there will be harmless little boys. The emergence of this situation at the moment is even more suspicious. This has to make Chang Ling more speculation, because it is too far beyond common sense. So she began to think about how to retreat. Seeing her not speaking, the little boy who was lying on the back of Qing Niu suddenly sat up straight, looking at Chang Ling with jet-black eyes. Are you afraid of me? She continued to be dumb, not knowing how to answer. And right here, a voice that could not suppress the sullenness sounded, get out of here. Chang Ling was shocked. Only then did he remember that he was still pressing on Xiao Dejuan and hurriedly got up and backed away. Yes, I'm sorry. She flushed and said in shame. Xiao Dejun suddenly sat up, and his eyes shot at her with a killing intent. The next time, I will kill you. Chang Ling knows that he is wrong, and is not easy to argue, only secretly sulking. Then he propped up his figure and stood up hard and reluctantly, almost tottering. Only then did Xiao Dejuan see a boy riding a green bull behind him. He subconsciously touched his waist, but he was surprised that the soft sword of the bodyguard had been left in the eyes of the giant beast long ago. Who are you? Xiao Dejun stepped back slowly, staring at the boy on the back of Qingniu. Can't you see this? I am a cattle herd. The little boy said crisply. He was startled. Herding cattle? Herding cattle in this eternally silent wilderness? This is really incredible. Why, don't you believe it? The little boy said again. Little Dejuan, who was cautious and suspicious by nature, didn't say much, but was thinking about how to leave. At this time, Chang Ling said, I believe, of course I believe, but it's so dangerous here. How have you been safe until now? Hearing the words, the little boy took off the hat from his head. No, there has always been only me and a cow here. We have always been here, so how could it be dangerous? Both Chang Ling and Xiao Dejuan were slightly startled, and they obviously began to doubt. Just the behemoth of the sky that almost put them to death before can explain that this wilderness can never be simple. But seeing the serious look of the little boy made her wonder again. At this moment, Xiao Dejuan dragged the immortal body that hadn't recovered and left straight away. Seeing this scene, Chang Ling also subconsciously wanted to keep up, but stopped again, a little at a loss. Who are you looking for when you come here? The boy jumped down from the back of the blue cow and landed steadily on the ground, raising his head to look at Chang Ling sincerely. She hesitated for a moment, and finally whispered, Have you ever seen a young man Yangxian here, the kind with very unique charm, unforgettable at a glance? Hearing this, the boy grinned. I have never seen it before. I said that since I have spiritual knowledge, there are only me and a green bull here, and there are no other immortals. Chang Ling was speechless. She wanted to refute, proving that there was more than Qingniu boy here, but she felt unnecessary. She smiled reluctantly. If this is the case, then I will bother you. I will go and look for it alone. After Chang Ling finished speaking, he nodded slightly, then moved on. The boy turned his head, looked at the figure going away, and said, I'll look for it with you. Chang Ling just wanted to decline, but found that Qingniu had come to her, raising her hair and making a heavy voice, as if urging her to move forward. She was helpless, but seeing that the Qingniu boy was innocent, she decided to go with her. Wanggu Yunyang can't disperse in the vast world, everything is deserted, occupied by ancient loneliness, and the years have long been meaningless. In it, only lonely companion. His body was stained with blood, and all his plain white uniforms were soaked. The thin and weak figure was shaky, and it seemed that he could fall down at any time and was not up. However, He was extremely tenacious, and although he was faltering, he still moved forward firmly. Chang Ling followed closely, maintaining a short distance. She wanted to step forward to help, but she was a little afraid. Seeing that firm figure, the inherent impression deep in her heart has quietly changed. At the same time, she also had a lot of doubts in her heart. Xiao Dejuan didn't seem to be as perverse and violent as the rumors from the outside world. While Chang Ling was thinking wildly, he walked unhurriedly toward the depths of the wilderness. There was silence, only the green cow whispered. I don't know how long it took. A tianhe blocked the way forward. The width of the tianhe almost divided the desolate realm into two. The black and opaque tianhe, like a silent void for 10,000 years, is enough to swallow everything. Chang Ling also came to this boundless tianhe river, her eyes a little dignified. And when she was thinking about how to cross the tianhe river, Xiao Dejuan soared without hesitation, and swept over the tianhe river. Then the immortal body was far from recovering, and due to his dizziness, after spanning a distance of less than 100 miles, he plunged directly into the tianhe. There is no splash of water, as if it is directly integrated into it. It is extremely curious. Seeing this scene, Chang Ling's body trembled, and in shock, too late to think, she also swept towards tianhe. But an even more treacherous scene appeared. While she was almost stepping on the sky above the tianhe, the immortal body was out of control, and the force in the meridians could not even be used at all. And the tianhe under her body had an unspeakable and unrejectable suction force that made her unable to cross as a Dian immortal. In an instant, she also stepped into the footsteps of Xiao Dijun and fell straight into the tianhe, without even a trace of splashes. There was a faint sigh from the shore, and the little boy riding on the back of the green cow shook his head, with an old man in his eyes that did not match his appearance. Then, facing the boundless tianhe, he rode down on a bull. The green cow raised his head and moaned, "Kom," and then his huge body swam above the water without sinking. It is like a yi guzhou, moving forward in the tianhe river. The little boy riding on the back of the green cow seemed to have taken it for granted, driving the green cow under him and slowly crossing. And when they passed the place where they fell, Qing Niu head dived, and then arched out a coma. The boy reached out and took it, then put Chang Ling, who had passed out, on the back of the cow and continued on. After dozens of breaths, Xiao Dijun's figure was also found, and he was placed on the back of Qing Niu. Like sitting in a lone boat, walking alone. At the end of the Tianhe River, at the end are barren mountains towering straight into the sky, full of desolation and aura. The green cow surfaced and then stood on the shore. The little boy patted its horns, turned around and waved his hand gently, and placed Xiao Dejuan and Chang Ling on the ground. Chapter 50-42. Wn Dao Jian Zun. They all drowned in the tianhe, passed out, and seemed unable to wake up for a short time. Sitting on the back of Qing Niu, the little boy stared at them and let out a faint sigh. Then, he stretched out his little hand and touched Qing Niu's neck. There was a black and silver collar. He took off the collar between Qing Niu's neck, and then waved to Xiao Dijun. The collar shrank in the wind, and when it fell by Xiao Dijun's side, it had become the size of a bracelet, and it was placed between his wrists. After doing all this, the little boy stopped staying, and with his legs clamped into the belly of the cow, he buckled and swam into the tianhe. Everything returned to death again. I don't know how long it took. Chang Ling, who was lying on her back on the shore, woke up first. Her beautiful eyes were full of lingering panic. When she saw that she had escaped from the danger and went ashore, she let out a sigh of relief. Well, the emperor? At this moment, Xiao Dejuan was lying on her side. His handsome and enchanting face was stained with blood, which added a bit of coldness, loneliness, and weakness. Chang Ling swallowed subconsciously, then stretched out his slender palm, preparing to put him in a comfortable position. But when her palm was about to meet Xiao Dejuan, he suddenly opened his eyes. With her eyes facing each other, Chang Ling's face turned red, and she quickly retracted her palm. "No, it's not what you think." Glancing at her coldly, Xiao Dejuan stood up on the ground, and then said in a deep voice, "Recognize your position. You are just a candidate for heavenly official. Don't do anything out of the ordinary." Chang Ling was stunned. Deep in the bottom of her eyes there was humiliation, and the water filled her eyes. No matter what she was, Xiao Dejuan got up and swept directly into the depths of the great barren mountain. The barren hills are silent, standing like a demon god. For some reason, Xiao Dejuan suddenly had a strong and familiar intuition, which could not be said, but it made his heart beat faster. In the dark, he realized that he was getting closer. Barren mountains are full of clouds and clouds are piled up. He has never been so anxious at this moment. Even if the fairy body is still on the verge of breaking, he will go forward with all his strength. The barren mountains were left behind, but more barren mountains stood in front of them, covering everything. Wushuang, Jian Wushuang he simply screamed, his voice circled in the barren mountains. As if sleeping for hundreds of millions of years, the spirits have fallen into the ethereal forever. On the top of the most central mountain, a figure imprisoned by tens of thousands of chains of qi luck slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were chaotic and dark red, like sleeping endless years, full of desolation and ancient silence. He heard familiar voices and familiar names. Jian Wushuang, this name, why, I have a familiar feeling. The figure bound by the chain was confused and puzzled. He felt that the divine thoughts in his mind were fragmented, his memories were fragmented, and everything was just vaguely remembered. But the next moment, the situation faded away. Accompanied by the appearance of a thin body covered in blood, his broken mind memory began to vibrate violently. No, Wushuang. His figure trembled, almost tottering, but stood firmly in the void. His true eyes were all incredible. And Chang Ling, who rushed to the scene later, screamed inwardly when she saw this scene, with incredible eyes. This scene is too shocking and too depressing. On the top of the sacred mountain, nearly 10,000 black gold chains containing supreme luck, hanging from the void, firmly bound a figure. The intertwining of luck and luck caused him to be imprisoned in numerous barren mountains. Wei Zun Academy. The corners of Xiao Dejuan's eyes trembled slightly. Then he didn't pause anymore, and swept forward directly. However, at the same time, nearly 10,000 chains were blooming at this moment, and they were actually isolating all external forces. Standing outside the barrier, Xiao Dejuan slammed into the barrier with heavy fists, trying to break it open. Jian Wushuang, who was trapped by the chain of qi luck, also looked at him again and asked, "Who are you?" His figure was shocked, and only unbelievable remained in his eyes. "You, don't you remember me?" A painful blankness flashed in Jian Wushuang's eyes, and the divine mind memory in his mind had become fragmented during that battle. Therefore, although he still retains his memory, it has become fragmented and cannot be connected together at all. Facing Xiao Dejuan, he only had an impression, but he couldn't recognize it at all. "You are my old friend." The corner of Xiao Dejuan's eyes trembled, and a touch of sadness flashed in his eyes. "Why don't you remember me?" Chang Ling also came to the enchantment, looking at Jian Wushuang, who was imprisoned by countless chains. She also thought of the one in the emperor's dojo, who frustrated Qingshan's Jian Wushuang. The two are in a miserable situation in comparison. Only shock and sadness remained in her eyes. Jian Wushuang stopped talking, his chaotic and dark red real eyes slowly closed. The chain of luck that bound him was made up of Emperor Qiyun Avenue, and it was impossible to break it. Outside the barrier, the little emperor, who was less than 10 steps away from him, his eyes gradually became firm. "I'll take you away." He only said this sentence, and then tried his best to smash the barrier. Chang Pei's soft sword has been lost, and he simply turned his palm into a fist and smashed it with one punch. But with the power of cultivating immortals, how could it be possible to destroy the emperor's luck? Divine blood splashed, and his palm had already been broken in this bombardment after another. And Chang Ling couldn't bear to watch any longer, and wanted to bombard the enchantment together. "Get away!" Xiao Dejuan screamed in anger, and only cold eyes looked at her. She clenched her silver teeth and finally backed away sadly. Drinking back Chang Ling, he continued to bombard the enchantment, as if he didn't know the pain and was tireless. But his power, before the emperor's luck, was so insignificant that he didn't even leave a trace. "Give it up, you can't break it," Jian Wushuang said slowly, without waves in his eyes. Boom! The last punch fell, the fist bones were directly broken, the fairy bone stubble broke through the skin, and the hideousness was exposed. "The spirit is dripping with blood," spilling into the void. Xiao Dijun's entire right fist was shattered, but his face was expressionless. The blood of the gods gurgled along the palm of his hand, and then quietly gathered in his wrist. In an instant, the black and silver bracelet bloomed with warmth and radiance, and the dusty lines on it were soaked by the blood of God, thus lighting up. That pattern, like a barren mountain with a sea of clouds, and a sea of sudden waves, is magnificent and cannot be looked at directly. Infiltrated by the blood of Xiao Dijun, the lines were completely unsealed, and the entire black and silver bracelet turned dark red. Then, it detached from the wrist and soared into the void. The inexhaustible strands of dazzling, like the purest and ultimate tassels, spilled over the top of the sacred mountain. It seems that the ancient big bell is ringing from the four fields, and the loud sound is heavy, so that the spirit is clear. In order to facilitate the next reading, you can click favorites below to record the reading record of this time. Chapter 5043. Wen Dao Jian Zun. The bracelets of introverted barren mountains and seas cast endless gorgeous charm. At this moment, the enchantment condensed by the emperor's luck was shattered and then collapsed. As the enchantment collapsed, nearly 10,000 chains of qi luck were trembling. Jian Wushuang raised his head, his dark red true eyes staring at the mysterious bracelet in the void above his head. He could feel that the chains of the emperor that bound him began to loosen. Xiao Dijun never stepped back, watching this scene nervously. He also had an intuition that all restrictions were dissipating. Wow! As the sea rolls up, the waves recede. All the chains of luck are trembling and vibrating. Next, all the chains were broken. The void trembled, and the mountain shook. And at the same time that all the chains of qi luck shattered, the bracelet hovering in the void began to shrink rapidly, and shrank and landed in front of Jian Wushuang. As before, the bracelet was directly placed between his wrists. The world was silent, and an unprecedented surging air flow erupted from Jian Wushuang's body. That is, Emperor Luck. It belongs to Emperor Jianwu's broken and sleeping luck. A dash he exhaled in pain, and the entire fairy body was once again covered by the terrifying Emperor's luck. Under the impact of this air luck, Xiao Dijun and Chang Ling were directly shaken back, unable to get close at all. The entire dim and barren wasteland was illuminated. At this moment, Jian Wushuang was in pain, and the pain was extreme. He felt the immortal body shattered inch by inch and was reshaping extremely quickly. In his round pupils, the dark red chaos and clear light were constantly alternating, and the fragmented divine thoughts were also difficult to reshape. This process is destined to be painful and long. Jian Wushuang stumbled, the bright fairy body was out of control, and slammed into the sacred mountain. Boom! The general situation erupted, and the barren mountains were crushed and collapsed. The wasteland was trembling and seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Wiping off the blood from the corner of his mouth, Xiao Dijun swept forward. Chang Ling gritted his teeth and followed immediately. Among the broken barren hills, he saw Jian Wushuang lying in the gravel. He rushed over, shaking his body, and then reached out to help him up. Although the generative power was exhausted, Xiao Dijun released the generative power to repair Jian Wushuang's broken fairy body. After 10 breaths, he slowly opened his eyes. The chaos in his eyes was no longer, and Qingming was replaced. Little Emperor? Why are you here? Little Emperor smiled tiredly. Pick you away. Jian Wushuang wanted to say something, but he was already at the end of the crossbow, and he passed out directly. Get a good night's sleep, everything is over after you sleep. Then, Xiao Dijun bowed his back and left the barren mountain. Chang Ling stood still, staring at the disappearing figure in a daze. For fields are full of broken rocks, surrounded by endless loneliness. Tianya said the long wind is gentle and the force flows. The boundless breeze blew up her long hair and clothes, drifting leisurely. How long have I been away? Already, more than 15,000 years. For a long time. Soon, I thought you would never come back if you left. This time, come back and stay longer. The conversation stopped there and there was no response. Xiao Dijun turned his head and looked at Jian Wushuang, who had fallen asleep again, and smiled helplessly. In a long pavilion covered with fairy grass, Wei Liujia with moist eyes is sitting in the pavilion, holding a star in his hand, closing his eyes and thinking. In front of him, there was a trigram image of hundreds of stars circulating on the basis of the void. He is constantly deducing. Every hundreds of breaths, he opened his eyes and placed the stars in his hands in the hexagrams on the chessboard. This has been going back and forth for thousands of years. And beside Wei Liujia, there was a big man who looked like a mountain, snoring loudly. This big man was Feng Shan. Wei Liujia completely regarded him as nothing, but he concentrated on deducing the chessboard hexagrams. He has deduced for thousands of years, but still can't feel where that breath is now, and as the years go by, that breath has become weaker and may even disappear at any time. This was not a good sign, but Wei Liujia didn't believe it. He still deduced it over and over again. Even though the hexagrams were different every time, he still never gave up. But this time, a gleam of doubt flashed in his opened eyes. Because at this moment, all the stars in the Xingluo chessboard in front of Wei Liujia were slowly moving, and they began to inject weak energy into the most central strand of divine energy. Feng Shan, the hexagram image seems to have changed. Feng Shan groaned, then changed his posture and fell asleep, completely ignoring Wei Liujia, who was already shocked to the extreme. Snapped. The stars at his fingertips fell, and everything returned. In the ethereal space of the fairy clouds, the huge hall built on the foundation of a whole heaven is extremely magnificent. And accompanied by a Wei Yangxian gathering here, there is a tendency for thousands of immortals to come to the dynasty. Beneath the clouds and the clouds, the four characters eternally unparalleled clearly stated that this is an auction house, a well-known auction house in thousands of domains. Here, it is enough to see the most treasures that Yangxian all coveted, and even there are exquisite pills that cannot be exchanged for all the resources of the universe. Every 500 years, WNGU Wushuang will open it once, and every time it opens, it will set off a storm, and even a superb pill will be involved in a battle of more than 10 heavens. Every time WNGU Wushuang is opened, it is also equivalent to the revelation of great opportunity. Except for the exquisite pill that the Lord of the Sky can only look up to, there are countless rare treasures flowing out. This is a great opportunity for every Xianxian, and even the eternal unparalleled auction house has developed so far. It is considered a privilege to be invited to the Xianxian. Among them, there is no lack of the Lord of the Heavens who came personally to get a glimpse of the exquisite pill. Wang Jiyu Wu Shuang Auction House has grown into a giant with complex foundation after nearly 20,000 years of development. At one time, many Tianyu coveted the supreme treasure in Eternal Warriors and tried to forcibly win the treasure. But overnight, they all disappeared, together with all the creatures in the heavens disappeared without a trace, as if they had evaporated. After the disappearance of nearly 20 heavenly domains that tried to destroy the eternal unparalleled, all the heavenly domains fell silent, and no one dared to pay attention to them. The masters of the heavens on each side are the immortals who have lived for endless years. Although they don't know the details of this auction house, they are no longer arrogant. Because just from the appearance, it is the three deep-powered immortals who control the eternal unparalleled, and it is rumored that one of these three immortals is about to break through the Dian immortal. Chapter 50-44. WN Dao Jian Zun. Although there are only 3 evangelists with only the strength on the bright side, all the masters of heaven with a clear mind would never think so. Because all the heavenly masters who were not clear about their brains and wanted to swallow this colossal behemoth had long since disappeared without a trace in the past 20,000 years. No one Yangxian knows that after 20,000 years of development, the hidden strength of the Wanggu Wushuang auction house will be so intertwined. Because from the point of view of the behavior style that destroyed several celestial planes in one night, it was already a behemoth that surpassed ordinary celestial planes. In 20,000 years, no Yangxian or even the Lord of Heaven dared to challenge it. After all, auction houses like this are the most unbreakable reason for bidding the treasure. With the passage of time, Wanggu Wushuang auction house has gradually changed from accepting transactions of celestial crystals to only accepting transactions of Black Mountain crystals. And the final finale of the Emperor Pin Pill, the Heishan Spa needed, was only low in price and reached an incredible level. Even if it is the master of the heaven who controls 3 or 5 heavenly planes, all the resources of his heaven will not necessarily be exchanged for an emperor-grade pill. Therefore, except for the first time, there were only a handful of DI pin pills that flowed out of the auction house in 20,000 years. This is also the reason why some heavenly masters are willing to attack the auction house desperately, because they can't afford it. But fortunately, in addition to trading with Black Mountain Spa, the Wangu Wushuang auction house also supports bartering, and even the most precious treasure. And this is why a lot of Yangxian can't get a huge amount of Heishan Spa, but they still want to enter the auction house because they hold the treasure. They can exchange it for the treasure of the same value. This is a feast, a chance. At the beginning of another 500 years, Wangu Wushuang auction house has already opened. It opened the gates of the temple widely, and the invited immortals came one after another, and many of them had the Lord of Heaven personally come, just to get a glimpse of the exquisite pill that only the Eternal Unparalleled had. The gate of the palace opens, and the Eternal Fairy comes. The auction house established on the basis of the entire Tianyu has gone through several changes, and it has long been magnificent to the extreme, enough to accommodate hundreds of thousands of top repairers and immortals sitting together. The heavenly palace is almost made of all kinds of precious jade and warm jade. It is magnificent, from the original 3-story to 5-story, with strict order. The Yangxian and Dingxiu of the ordinary sects are located on the first floor, and some hidden sects, or the large sects that control a lot of heaven, are divided into the second floor. As for the upper level, there are the Masters of the Heavens, the Masters of the Heavens, and the Masters of the Heavens who have had several or even dozens of transactions. Only the highest layer is in a dusty state. No Yangxian knows whose position it belongs to, and few Yangxians care about it. They come here just to get a treasure. Under the guidance of a row of maids, a total of thousands of Yangxian have entered the Eternal Warriors auction house, waiting to be opened. As the atmosphere in the hall gradually warmed up, a spring breeze softened the jade, and the beautiful fairy with outstanding posture appeared, and finally stood in the center of the hall. The candidate fairy who was abducted from Tianting by Chen Qing earlier, named Qingling, has been presided over at the WNGU Wushuang auction house for nearly 20,000 years and has become an indispensable scenery. With her appearance, the auction officially began. My elders, it is the beginning of another 500 years, with a new look. There are 40 items in the Eternal Warriors auction this time, of which they must be. Along with the crisp sound resounding in the temple, all the Yangxian who took the seat became concentrated and listened quietly. And in the space around the third floor, it was faintly flooded with undercurrents. Is there any confirmation? A more refined and easygoing voice sounded in the dim space. Immediately afterwards, a figure was hidden to the extreme, like a lingering black shadow, bowed and said in a low voice, "There is certain news, there are indeed 2 pills containing that kind of luck at the finale of the lot." Only. Just what? It's just that these 2 pills have already been booked by Jiyu Haicheng. Scheduled. Do they have this strength? The elegant and easygoing voice was cold and disdainful. You need to know which one, but ask for a whole Black Mountain Spa. Even if their background is too deep, they can come up with this. More things. Hearing this, the Black Shadow said in a low voice, "My son, have you forgotten that 10,000 years ago, when 10 Masters of Heaven tried to destroy the Eternal Warriors auction house, the old guys in Guhai City secretly helped and protected this place?" An elegant and easygoing voice sounded again, "Oh, I have forgotten this, but with the help of one shot that 10,000 years ago, I am afraid it is not enough to take 2 pills. The Black Shadow whispered, "I'm afraid, it's already a certainty, the sun. The son of the ancient sea city I was watching before is already a winner, and I am determined to win. I am afraid this time." "Okay, stop talking." The voice changed from lazy and refined, and became a little cold and decisive. After that, he slowly got up, the gold, blue and silver paintings intertwined on his costume, which was indescribably deep and magnificent. There is a surging force surging around. Under the warm and lunar-like light, he is quite decent and handsome. Before the final result is settled, everything is false. I really want to see what he is capable of in the ancient seas and can swallow 2 pills. At the same time, in the same space on the third floor, a figure of the same magnificent figure is sitting on a jade chair, with its head propped on its palm, looking boredly at auction after auction. As we all know, in fact, the auctions of WNGU Wushuang Auction House are relatively boring, because the unsold rate of each piece of treasure is extremely high. After almost one auction, Com might not even sell even 10 treasures. And even if it is the most treasured auction, there is a high probability of bartering for it. Because the price of the treasure here has reached an incredible level, and it can only be traded with Black Mountain Spar. You should know that the Black Mountain Spar, which contains abundant derivation and even weak luck, is too extravagant to be used as currency. However, the only designated currency of WNGU Wushuang Auction House is Heishan Spar, which has led to the extremely high rate of auctions of the treasures, and the reason why the form of bartering has become more popular. This situation has not changed since 10,000 years ago. Therefore, all kinds of reasons are added to everything, which led to the most boring auction in the Wangu Wushuang Auction House. Chapter 5045. WN Dao Jianzun. As the most prestigious young man in ancient Sea City, he was naturally not interested in such a complicated auction. But he came anyway, not for anything else, just to meet the real guy. He had already heard that in the entire vast expanse of the Great Division, there were only ways to make the immortal feel, and even break through the shackles, only the exquisite pill in the eternal unparalleled auction house. Regarding this exquisite pill, all the gods know very little, or even know nothing, but judging from the pill that spread tens of thousands of years ago, it is terrible. The Tianyus who first received this kind of pill have even been rumored that the shackles that broke through Yangxian are beginning to loosen. This undoubtedly adds to the madness of the rest of the universe and even the immortal. They have endless life, but they have to endure the cage that cannot break through their own shackles, which is undoubtedly cruel. But now, this upward path has a way again. Although it is still an extravagant hope, all the immortals are trying to give it a try. The final auction is the heart of all the gods and even the masters of the heavens. At this moment, the young man from Guhai City didn't have the slightest worry, as if the result was doomed and the winning ticket was in hand. What he has to do now is go through a cut scene. 40 pieces of the most treasured lot, as the unsold rate is close to 90%, the progress is extremely fast. Often after Qingling has introduced a treasure, she will continue to introduce the next treasure like a rush. At this rate, the 40 treasures can be introduced without consuming at most 10 hours. As time passed, all the first 20 treasures were sold. And the real finale wait has just begun. In the next period of time, Yangxian finally made a bid. After nearly 20,000 years of precipitation, the vast quantity and high quality of the treasures in the Wangu Wushuang Auction House have reached an unprecedented level. There are rumors that Wangu Wushuang Auction House is already the richest existence in the entire Big Division. Looking at the most mysterious treasures, one by one, this made the masters of all heavens begin to hold their breath and become nervous. Finally, the treasure came to the 38th story. It is a foreboding that the whole temple is silent, and the undercurrent is surging. The finale has always been the exquisite pill that is only available in the Wushuang Auction House. And the 39th treasure, it heralds the climax. At this moment, all the powerhouses on the 3rd floor all got up and looked at the center of the hall. Even young master Jiyu Haicheng, who had been sitting on the jade chair for a long time, suddenly stood up, looking down nervously between his brows. Qingling smiled slightly, and between her slender palms, a black box of shamwood appeared. And with the appearance of this black box of mellow wood, with Qingling as the center, a strong medicinal effect instantly swept the entire temple. This is a strange fragrance. My lords, this is the 39th lot. It is a Kanglian Dan and contains majestic luck. If you accept it, you will surely break through the shackles and become the emperor within 10,000 years, and if you accept it, you will realize that you can break through the shackles of the day and make a breakthrough. This Kanglian Dan has an initial price of 600 million Heishan Spar. Qingling smiled, and after saying these last words, waved to open the black box. In an instant, the supreme colorful brilliance burst out, and they were connected to each other to form a rainbow shadow, which swayed and enveloped the entire temple. The pill in the box is in the color of transparent glaze, which is introverted and has great luck circulating in it. Seeing this scene, all the immortals were moved, even the Lord of Heaven could not take it lightly. This Kang Lian pill was too terrifying, basically equivalent to a guarantee for a fairy, and the upper limit broke through the day. Read novels every day. The base price of 600 million Black Mountain Spa is enough to explain the terrible pill. Chang Yangxian's face was sad. They had already lost the bidding qualifications. Such a terrible reserve price, even in the history of Wangu Wushuang auction house, is extremely rare. I'm afraid that even the lord of the ordinary heavenly territory can't come up with so many Black Mountain Spas. In the Temple of Heaven, there was a brief dead silence. But this dead silence only lasted for a few interest periods before it was broken by a bid. 600 million. There was an uproar all around, all the immortals were shocked, and then all looked at the place where the sound was made. There was the third layer, surrounded by a vast layer of power barrier, extremely secretive. The bidding sound is full of breath, full of the general trend of the superior. Almost at the same time, another low bid sounded, 610 million. The bidding has not gone down yet, and a lazy and elegant voice has completely kicked off the bidding. 600 million, 50 million. The Temple of Heaven was noisy in a low voice, 650 million Black Mountain Spa. This was an unimaginable number, almost piled up into a hill, but it was understated as a bargaining chip right now. 700 million. The puffy voice shocked the audience again. Qing Ling, who was holding the black box of mellow wood, was also completely shocked. She knew very clearly that the reason why the pill had such a high reserve price was to prevent competing offers. But she never expected that such an incredible price would start competing for quotations. 710 million. 730 million. 800 million. The smile on Qing Ling's face was already stiff, and the situation began to a little bit beyond her imagination. Immediately afterwards, her gaze was more secret. She looked at the most central space on the third floor. Damn it, who is this against us? The young man who came from Gu Haicheng's expression was already dignified and cold. Behind him are 10 Yangxian followers. Then, an old man took a step forward and said, "My son, he is from Shangjunzong. Shangjuanzong? Just rely on them, dare to bid." He was already on the verge of anger. You know, the ancient sea city encompassing 13 heavens and 600 million Heishan spas are already the limit. At the moment, the price of 800 million yuan has exceeded too much. So that the Gu Haicheng's son who had the winning ticket, felt worried and tremendous pressure. If such an offer continues, he absolutely cannot bear it. "My son, if you continue to report, I'm afraid the foundation of our universe will be shaken." The elder Yangxian behind him was already a little anxious to persuade. "In that case, let this pill be out." He shook his head and said, his eyes full of sullenness. Next, such a Kang Lian Dan was finally photographed at a price of 800 million yuan. A look of helplessness flashed through the depths of Qing Ling's eyes. You must know that this Emperor Pin pill should belong to Gu Haicheng Tianyu. But everything changed, and the Emperor Pin pill was finally photographed by the owner of that energetic voice. In order to facilitate the next reading, you can click favorites below to record the reading record of this time, chapter 5049. Unbelievable quote, and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like Sword Sovereign of 10,000 Ways, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 5046. WN Dao Jian Zun 39 treasures have passed, and in the end only one treasure remains. And this last treasure is also a Kang Lian Dan. Qing Ling held it in her palm, and even before she could quote the reserve price, she was immediately preempted by a lazy and elegant voice. 7 billion. The Temple of Heaven was in a complete uproar, and all the immortals and even the lord of the heavenly territory stared at the third layer of space. Directly higher than the reserve price by 100 million, this is equivalent to telling the rest of Yangxian in disguise that this last Kang Lian pill is bound to be obtained. Qing Ling's expression became tense. She knew that the quota was not Gu Haicheng, but Shangjuanzong Boom. In the space that belonged to the visitors from ancient Sea City, the young man was furious and directly smashed the jade chair beside him. Is Shang Juanzong looking for death? Master, we can't give up this last pill. Elder Yangxian said nervously. You don't need to remind. He shouted in a deep voice, and then offered an offer, 750 million. Then, the lazy and elegant sounded again. 800 million. The eternal warrior auction house was dead, and all the gods and even the masters of the heavens looked towards the third layer of space. This is just one round of quotation, which directly exceeds the price of the last pill. But this is not the end, but the beginning. 830 million, 850 million, 880 million, 900 million. The hall was completely silent, and all Yangxian showed an unspeakable expression after hearing this number. The price of 900 million has completely exceeded the transaction price of the last Emperor Pin Pill by 100 million. 100 million Heishan Spa is enough to be used for hundreds of millions of years, even longer. This is beyond imagination. At this moment, the space of the visitors from ancient Sea City was completely agitated. It was the sun who was holding the winning ticket, but he was firmly suppressed by this price. At the 13th horizon of ancient Sea City, the Heishan Spa that can be mobilized is only 800 million at most, but the price of this Emperor Pin Pill has already far exceeded 800 million, reaching as much as 900 million. Although the sun was angry, everything was helpless. His chest rises and falls, his eyes can't hide his loss. And at this moment, the Yanli enchantment swayed in layers, and then a maid stepped into the space. She gave a slight salute and said softly, Master Kui has something to say, you just need to quote, no matter how high the price, in the end this pill belongs to your ancient Sea City. The son of Jiyu Haicheng was shocked, his expression changed from the initial anger to relief. Then, the elder Yangxian next to him folded his hands and said, in this way, Lord Laotrai has bothered, and I am grateful for the 13 heavens in ancient Sea City. The maid nodded and walked away. The son was relieved, looked at the expression in the center of the hall, and returned to the state of holding the winning ticket. Billions. The hall turned from dead silence to noisy, and they were all shocked. 1 billion bids, this has broken the 20,000-year transaction price of Wangu Wushuang auction house, and this is not the end. Huaheng College. Just when all Yangxian thought that the final transaction price was 1 billion, the space that had been silent for a long time quoted the price again. 1 billion. The immortals can no longer express their expressions, they can't imagine the 1 billion Black Mountain Spa. 2 billion. The crisp and neat quotation once again hit the minds of the immortals. My son, you can't make any more prices. The price that the sect can bear is 2 billion, and we can no longer bid. In the third layer of space, the shadow whispered, anxious in his words. Standing with his hands in his hands, the young man dressed in gold, blue and silver painted Chinese clothes slowly closed his eyes. 2 billion, 2 billion, that's 2 billion. You said, can they get so many Black Mountain Spas? Hearing this, the black shadow whispered, go back to the sun, let's give them the pills for the time being this time. Let's come again in 500 years. By then, we only need half the price to get one. But I'm not reconciled. The young man sighed. In the middle of the hall, Qing Ling breathed a sigh of relief without any trace. The last time he bid 2 billion, it was from Gu Haicheng. This also means that her goal has been achieved. If this is the case, then this last Kang Lian Dan was held by the 13th heaven domain of Jiyu Hai City. Without finishing a sentence, ripples suddenly appeared on the third floor. Then, the enchantment retreated, and more than 10 Yangxians of Shang Juanzong stepped down into the air and came to the center of the hall. Seeing this, Qing Ling hurriedly put away the black box of wood in her heart, stepped back and looked at the visitor vigilantly. Immediately afterwards, more than a dozen Yangxians from Guhai City also swiftly walked through the air, standing on the opposite side of Shang Juanzong. With his eyes facing each other, young master Jiyu Haicheng said coldly, why, the bidding is not successful, do you want to grab it? The young son of Shang Juanzong smiled slightly when he heard the words, no, you have misunderstood this. I'm here just to verify one thing. After he finished speaking, He looked at Qingling. Girl Qingling, I want to verify something. Of course it can. Although Qingling was a little confused, she nodded. The thing I want to verify is whether his ancient sea city can take out 1.2 billion Black Mountain spar? If it can't, what should he do? As soon as this word came out, the hall became noisy again. All the elders of Guhai City changed their expressions and became nervous. In this auction, the Black Mountain spar they brought was only 800 million, and it was impossible to come up with 1.2 billion at a time. Right now, facing such persecution, they have no solution at all. The son of Guchengai looked cold, as if trying to suppress the anger in his heart. Seeing this change, the young son of Shang Juanzong smiled secretly. Oh, can't you get it out? Then, he turned his head to look at Qingling. Girl Qingling, what should I do if I can't bid the corresponding price? Qingling's expression changed. She also knew the seriousness of this kind of thing, and she didn't dare to speak out. The next moment, a Bohemian voice resounded, and quieted the whole noisy hall. How is it possible that the corresponding bid can't be offered? Jiyu Haicheng boy, continue. All Yangxian looked up and saw a figure wearing a black gold uniform stepping down into the air. With a wave of his palm, a bag fell into the air. The son of Jiyu Haicheng smiled and directly raised his hand to take the bag. Seeing the appearance of this figure, all Yangxians whispered. They all knew clearly that this guy wearing a black and gold uniform and looking awkwardly beaten up was the third in command of the Wanggu Wushuang auction house, Kui Jing. His sudden appearance at the moment made the situation serious again. All the Yangxians in Shangjuanzong took a step back slowly. The young son narrowed his eyes and his expression became more subtle. In order to facilitate the next reading, you can click on favorites below to record this, chapter 50/50, tit for tat, reading record, and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like Sword Sovereign of 10,000 Ways, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.